Normally, when the Indian Super League schedule and all the fixtures for the season are announced, it's seen as a time of celebration because, of course, fans of all of the major clubs in Indian football are looking forward to their sides being able to play, and you're getting to know when those big matches are going to be held. There's oftentimes a lot of excitement and joy, and especially so it should be that way at a time when Indian football is going through, let's just say, a little bit of a resurgence in terms of not necessarily popularity but being in the general public's conscience, because of course you had those wins in the Intercontinental Cup and then the SAF Cup that came about and ended up putting a lot of positive spotlight on the Indian national football team. So in truth, the ISL should be looking to, let's say, build on that. However, the release of this particular edition of the schedule came as more of a poignant message not only to the Indian national football team but even to the governing body, that is, of course, the All India Football Federation, or the AIFF for short. How exactly is that so? Well, this is because there has been a lot of talk in the background, and in fact now in the media as well, about the fact that the AIFF have been trying really hard to get the ISL clubs to release players for the Asian Games, which of course India will be taking part on, despite the fact that they don't make the criteria for being a top ranked 8 or the top 8 ranked team in Asia. You remember there was a campaign done to ensure that the team could participate. The government as well as the Sports Authority of India actually gave in to that campaign and named the team. But ever since then, there's been a lot of chaos, including but not limited to the fact that, truth be told, none of these clubs are obliged to release these players for this particular tournament. Why? Because the Asian Games don't come under an AFC or FIFA related event. It's an under 23 tournament mostly, where only 3 senior players are allowed to be part of the squad, and therefore the clubs are not mandated to release their players at this point. So them not releasing their players is very much them actually just sticking to the guns that they are allowed to by the rule of the letter. However, there has been plenty of, let's say, consternation at the fact that these players aren't being released, not least within the AIFF, because they worked really hard to ensure that the Indian team could actually be playing the Asian Games. However, so far, in fact, there have been concessions made as well, because the AIFF eventually settled on a formula that would ensure that not more than 2 players from one ISL club would be named in the Asian Games squad, which of course even led to some changes within the senior players, because Gurpreet Singh Sandhu will most likely not be going, but Liston Kolako will. However, now there have been further complications, and in fact now you'll understand what it is I meant when I said that the releasing of the ISL schedule seemed a very poignant message towards the AIFF with regards to who it is that runs the main league. And I'll give you a hint, it's not the AIFF. But first, we'll go back to why it is we're talking about this particular issue, because this time, previously what was happening was that there were appeals being made to the AIFF, to the ISL, from AIFF Secretary General Shaji Prabhakar. And now the president of the AIFF, the most powerful man in that board, has actually spoken out and said that he would request the ISL, let's say FSDL rather, the people who own and manage the ISL, to push it back a little bit. In fact, this was exactly what he said. He said, I'll speak to FSDL, to people in FSDL, to defer the league and start it sometime in October, so that we can field a full strength team at the Asian Games. This was the thing which he said, which, and believe you me when I said there's a lot more that was actually said, because he said that, national pride must come above everything. Yes, it is important that you have the ISL, but the ISL is not the be all and end all. In fact, no club is bigger than the nation. These were a lot of things that he had said, but the crux of it, the major crux of it, came down to the quote that you can see on your screen, where he said that I'm going to speak to FSDL and ensure that we can get the league, let's say, the start of the league deferred, because the league was supposed to start on September 21st, and once that start took place, well, then at that particular time what was going to happen was that you would in fact be the league would start, but the Asian Games are starting from in and around the same time period. So there would be a major problem in that regard when it comes to like getting these players out, because as the reason the president is having to even speak up in this regard is because clubs have so far refused to play ball. And this was something of a radical solution, sure, but it was also seen as a solution that many people would, let's say, be okay with. However, there was a very firm rebuttal from an ISL spokesperson who gave a statement to the media, and the crux of it really said was that given the packed football calendar, there is no scope of postponement of the tournament. And they actually stood true to their word in one very simple way, because, well, they ended up announcing the schedule the same time that all the strata started doing the rounds, that maybe you could defer the ISL. Them putting out the schedule makes it very clear that at this point there's going to be no chance whatsoever of deferring the start, because as even this ISL spokesperson pointed out, they made all of the schedules and calendared it, tabled it, whilst speaking to keeping all stakeholders in mind. That included the clubs, the players, the people who are running the clubs, but also most importantly the AIFF. And this really comes down to this is really where the problem comes down to the AIFF and the top brass severely misunderstanding how is it that the sport of football works. In a sport like cricket, we've been having a club versus country debate for a very long time, and generally speaking, you do tend to take that approach that the country is bigger than any club, and that is correct in the sport of cricket, because as long as the sport of cricket has been around, it has in fact been international rivalries that have driven the sport's competitive balance, as well as, of course, the money that comes with the sport. However, it is quite the reverse in a sport like football, wherein a club culture has existed for decades and sometimes even almost a century more than the international game really started to come into relevance. So in football, it's the reverse. It is the clubs that hold most of the power, and the international game does not in fact get that much preference. That is why you'll see international tournaments like the FIFA World Cup and the AFC Cup, AFC Asian Cup, or pretty much any other tournament, the Copa America, all are held during the off season from the clubs, because the clubs are the ones who employ the players. So therefore, they have the right to decide when it is that they will be able to release them or not release them. The only time that clubs are mandated to release players is during FIFA or AFC window clauses, of course, depending on, let's say, the federation that they come under. So European clubs have to release players during UEFA and FIFA related windows. Beyond that, they have no legal right whatsoever. And the AIFF trying this tactic where they try to put national pride above, say, the clubs, would be a tactic that would work in a sport like cricket. But for a sport like football, it might not make any sense, because again, as I said, the clubs do tend to hold all the power. And what's more, the AIFF itself is in a complicated situation, because previously, when the I-League existed, the I-League was managed and run by the AIFF. It still exists and is still managed and run the same way, but it's the secondary league, it's the second division league. The primary league, the ISL, is of course privately owned by Football Sports Development Limited, and FSDL don't need to adhere to anything that the the AIFF is telling them. They will run the ISL as they see fit. So that is where the complication comes in, and truth be told, right now you're seeing a little bit of a power struggle, power tussle, a tug of war between the let's say the body that governs the sport, as well as, let's say, the organization that has the commercial rights to the sport's main league. And it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon, but right now it does seem like the ball is very much in the court of the AIFF as to what it is that they can do, because as the ISL proved, there's really not much they can do, and what's more, they made it clear there'll be no deferring of the league, even if that means they don't choose to release these players to play in the Asian Games. What are your thoughts on the entire matter, though? You can let us know that in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and tap that bell icon as well. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook too, and if you're already on the channel, go right ahead, check out some other videos that we've done, and don't forget to download the SportsTak app as well. For now, though, from my side, it is bye-bye.